We now go to the first phase of the DMAIC, which is the define phase. In the define phase, we try to understand the problem. Our approach in this module is to go through the different tools, but in a sequential manner, in terms of where you would most likely encounter the tool if you were running a Lean Six Sigma project. This is the DMAIC methodology. We will be looking at this methodology during this course. So it highlights here the step-by-step process of doing the process improvement. Again, there's an equation there on top, which are always a reference, y equals f of x. If you have a desired, y is the outcome, the desired characteristic that you would want to achieve. And in order to achieve that, you need to control what we call the internal process characteristics, which are represented by the x's. And you go through this step-by-step process to do the improvements that you want to do. Under D or define, you identify what the customer expects of your process. Then you go to measure, where you quantify the pain, you identify the frequency of the defects, and here you eliminate the ambiguities because you get to know what it is that you're trying to measure. And then you go to A, which is analyze. Now you identify what are the root causes influencing the output that you would want to improve. And once you've identified that, you go to I, which is improve, and you implement solutions and you verify the effectiveness. Once you've discovered the solution to your challenges, you now go to control. You make sure that the solutions that you implemented become sustainable. For now, we go to define, which is the first part of the DMAIC methodology. In the define module, there will be three major topics. The first one is we'll be talking about project selection. When you are in a process, you identify what process to start. This is quite relevant if you are in an organization, because organizations have multiple priorities. So you need to identify first the projects that you would want to move forward. But if you're a freelancer, you can choose a specific topic that you would want. It could be a project that is requested by your client or a project that is related to your internal process. Okay, so the next major section here in define is the project charter. This is quite useful when you are launching a Lean Six Sigma project. And then the third topic that we're going to discuss for this module is the process mapping. The question now is, where could projects come from? And this is quite useful when you are in an organization that would need to manage the resources. So three components where projects would come from would be, one will be the voice of the customer. These are the feedback of your customer. It could be customer complaints. It could be from product recalls or from the feedback of your customer. The second chunk will be what we call the voice of the process. If you're running a process, you would count the breakdowns, the defects, or operational efficiency. This is quite useful if you're in a manufacturing setup, but in a service industry, you also get to encounter this. So it could be a defects in the output that you've given to your customer. The customer may not have complained, but if you are tracking the process, then you have a mechanism to measure the performance of your process. And the next chunk is what we call the voice of the business. This is more on the dollar side or the peso side of your business. So it could be profitability, revenue target. Are you hitting the desired revenues of your company or of your business, and organic growth? These are the different sources of information that could trigger a project for your process. We now go to a very important tool. It's quite frequently used. It's what we call the VOC to CTQ. This tool is very important when you want to translate the needs of your customer, because sometimes our customer can give ambiguous requirements. So you need to translate that. Two uses for this one. The first one is it could lead to a project selection, a customer complaint. You need to translate that. You get to identify how you would address the needs of your customer. At the same time, this tool can also be used if you want to, let's say you are in the business of creating something for your clients and your clients has ambiguous requirements. So you need to translate that into something that is easy to measure. Okay, for example, in the example I'm using here is, so it's divided into three parts, by the way, the need, quality driver, and performance requirement. So a customer would require a need of a good customer service. So what drives good customer service? I think the example here is probably they are in a business of handling customer complaints. Maybe this is a credit card example. I'll just move my camera over here. Okay, so a good customer service could be, one, waiting time. So that's a quality driver. So that's key driver that would determine whether a customer will be satisfied, how pleasant your staff is, and it could be a refund policy. In terms of the waiting time, performance requirement could be, maybe a measure would be 90% of your customers are satisfied with the waiting time. Waiting is something that is part of the process, but how satisfied are your customer based on the waiting time that you provide to them? Next one is phone calls answered within 20 seconds. That is a good measure of waiting time. Your customer might not want to wait beyond 20 seconds. Okay. Another one will be percentage of purchases or refunds processed within 2 minutes. If your customer has a purchase or a refund request, ideally 90% should be addressed within 2 minutes. Pleasant stuff. How pleasant your stuff here can be measured in terms of they should be greeted within 30 seconds upon entering a store, or you need to have a customer smiling genuinely when interact. Sorry, you have a staff who's customer facing, smiling genuinely when interacting with your customer. Refund policy. So you can measure refund policy here as percentage of customer satisfaction. So ideally, 80% should be satisfied with your refund policy. What this tool simply did was to convert a need into something that you can easily measure in terms of the performance. At this point, we can have an activity. Using a VOC to CTQ tool, list down 3 performance requirements for an effective face-to-face meeting. I'll give a context for this activity. Imagine you are running a meeting for a client. So you could be an event organizer, and your client requested that he or she wants an effective face-to-face meeting. That's a bit ambiguous. Using the VOC to CTQ tool, how would you translate effective face-to-face meeting? I would suggest you pause the video now and maybe spend 1 to 3 minutes and write down what you think would be an effective face-to-face meeting. And once you're ready, you can proceed to the next slide. Okay, this example actually happened to me when I was handling a client of an international NGO. We have annual face-to-face meeting, and the requirement of the client was he wanted it to be an effective face-to-face meeting. In my experience or in my context, the following were identified to be the quality drivers. Content. A lot of our customers wanted meeting content because you have customers flying from different parts of the globe, and they would want to have a good value for their time. So a driver here will be the content of the meeting. Number 2 is the level of engagement. So people would want interaction, not just one-way flow of knowledge. And at the same time, it has to be cost-effective. With that in mind, content can be these are the following performance requirements for content. So it should be able to address all members of the supply chain, because at that time we have different members across the supply chain. So you want to make sure that the content is able to address all those people involved in the supply chain. And of course, the information that we need to provide needs to be up to date. Okay. Engaging. So in terms of the engagement, we would want to allot time for subgroup discussion. So it's not just going to be a plenary discussion. We would want to have inputs from our stakeholders, and that's why we allotted subgroup discussion. And another requirement is to also have fun along the way. So we made sure that we have added fun activities. Okay, cost effective. In terms of cost, we wanted to keep our registration fee to be less than $80 per day. And cost effective also means that the cost that we have for that meeting would have to be kept low, and this will only come from the registration fee. Okay, we now go to the next tool that is encountered. It's a framework. We've discussed this in the lean part. It's called QCD. Basically, it only means that a challenge or a project can be categorized into 3 components. It could be a problem of quality, it could be a problem of cost, or it could be a problem of delivery. Once you know the category of the project where it belongs to, it becomes much easier for you to implement the project, because you would identify what will be the specific tools that you need to address the challenges. Let's look at some examples in terms of how you would classify a project or a challenge. We'll have an exercise, but the question is, what QCD category does this problem belong to? The first one, it takes 6 days to process your order. Others, in this case, others would mean your competitor can do it in 2 days. What do you think the problem type of this one? This one is a timeliness or a delivery type of problem. Okay. Second one, out of 100 complaints in the department has handled, 15% were not diagnosed correctly on the first call. This one is a problem on the quality aspect. Number 3, 20 customers last week have complained that the online app shut down during the purchase process. Again, this is type of problem that's considered that would fall under quality. Number 4, the department takes 5 people to complete a task that normally 2 people can do. This is more of a cost type of problem, because if you're paying 5 people instead of paying for 2, then you're passing that cost to your customers. This is a cost challenge. And number 5, last week 25% of the items produced were defective. So this one is a quality type of The next question that we ask is, who are your customers? There are actually two types of customers, internal and external. Normally, if you're a freelancer, just let's say a solo freelancer, then your customers would be external. These are the people that buy your product. Internal customers would be people within your team or within your company. This slide talks about customer feedback. So you need customer feedback to identify what projects you would want to initiate or identify which of your processes you need to improve. So there are several ways you can get customer feedback. The first one is you can conduct a telephone survey. Number two, you can have on-the-spot feedback. If there's an interaction with your customer, you can ask immediately for that feedback on the product or service that you have provided. Okay, some companies or some processes have a complaints form. If you're a freelancer, you might have a form that you give to your client after the service has been rendered. This is an opportunity for you to get their feedback or complaints if they have any. Another one is a type form survey. There might be some customers who might feel a bit hesitant to reveal their name. So the type form survey can be used to have anonymous responses. It can be more candid if it can't be traced to them. And another tool which is quite useful is the Net Promoter Score. We have a specific slide to talk more on the Net Promoter Score. Okay, so this is the Net Promoter Score. It's quite useful in terms of putting a number to feedback of your customer and identify, top of mind reasons on how you can improve the specific product or service that you provide to your customer. So the first question that's being asked is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you rate our service? It's very top of mind. So there's no right or wrong answer. You're just asking the customer to give a value for that one. And number two is a probing question. Why is your score such? So here you're asking the reasoning behind why your customer gave that score. It's always a top of mind response. And these are extremely useful top of mind response because it's the first one that your customer thinks when thinking about your product. And the third one is forward looking. How can we improve it? Okay? So very, very simple set of questions, but very powerful. On a scale of 1 to 10, being the highest, how would you rate our service? Why is your score such? And how can we improve it? I recall at that time when I was put on the spot to conduct a survey at the end of the meeting. Unfortunately, I know the Net Promoter Score, so I immediately set up this kind of questioning at the end of the meeting. And we asked our participants on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate the meeting. And then the next question is, why is their score such? And then the third question is how we can improve it. The Net Promoter Score. Another tool that's quite useful is what we call Kano Model. This is a great tool that can help you identify any specific areas that you would want to improve on your process. So Kano Model is a framework that's used to understand or prioritize the features of your product, of your service, based on how likely they will satisfy your customers. Because not all features are the same. You need to classify these features. There's a feature called the musts, the must-haves. There's a feature called the wants, and then there are features called the exciters or the satisfiers. So, or for your department, in case you are the head of a department and you want to apply Lean Six Sigma. There are three major types of projects. The first one is what we call the just do it. The just do it in this case is you know what the problem is and you know the solution. So it's just a matter of implementation. So it's just like managing a project. You have a timeline, you talk to your team, and then you apply it. Then just do it. Number two is what we call a lean project. So a lean project typically is more on turnaround time. If you would want to reduce the turnaround time of your process by maybe eliminating defects or reducing waiting time, then this typically is covered as a lean project. And the third type of project is a Six Sigma project. So a full-blown Six Sigma project happens when you're dealing with quality issues and you don't know what the causes are. So quality issues, maybe cost issue as well. The cost eventually is related to quality as well. And you don't know what the causes are. So in this case, you apply a full-blown Six Sigma project. And there you have it. That's the first part of the module for Define. We've gone through different requirements in terms of how you trigger a project and understanding customer requirements. The second part of this module is about the project charter. This is a blueprint that you look when you want to launch a Lean Six Sigma project.